Welcome back, everybody. This is season 1, episode 2 of our podcast. We got some pretty cool and special guests today from our partner, Sun Behavioral Health, Dr. Surafel Ejigu and Mr. Keeten Needum. Fellas, how's it going today?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm blessed to be here, to be in this space, to be able to conversate, but also have really deep conversations with you fellas. So,
Absolutely.
yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. So we're going to get right into it. Again, our goal with our podcast is really to advocate and spread awareness about things like mental health, economic stability, workforce, just everything that can be supportive in the Black community. Sun Behavioral Health is a great partner of ours. They do some amazing work in the psychiatric and the mental health community. And so we always want to make sure that we highlight and bring brothers from these organizations on board to be able to talk about the work that they do. And so I'm not sure who wants to take this first question, but tell us a little bit more about Sun Behavioral Health and what exactly it is you guys do on a day-to-day.
So, Sun Behavioral Health, we're a crisis stabilization facility. We service adolescents, adults in our geriatric population in an inpatient and outpatient setting. We do have outpatient for our adolescents as well. Partial hospitalization is just a step down from our inpatient setting. And we service a lot of bipolar, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, depression and anxiety and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think these are, we'll kind of circle back to them later in the podcast, but these are a lot of terms we sometimes hear, but we don't always know exactly what they are, what they mean, or how we can identify or at least help support somebody who may be going through these different issues. Sir, remind me of your title in your role at Sun Behavioral Health. I think it's pretty cool what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so, excuse me, I'm a director of clinical services. So, essentially, I kind of help coordinate the clinical program that we do from an inpatient perspective. So, nurse practitioners, doctors, therapists, and the whole clinical team, I kind of work hand in hand with them to make sure we provide quality care for our patients, but also with us being a crisis stabilization hospital, our patients are only there for a short period of time. So we got to make sure that what we're doing is of quality, right? And then also moving them along the continuum of care. So my goal is to kind of work as a mediator, but also kind of help lead the team in a way that provides effective care for the population that we serve. So
That's pretty dope. And then Keaton, you're in business development.
Business development, yeah. So we basically market for our hospital. I go to referral sources, gain those resources, as well as, provide that resource so that people can bring in the referrals, go get crisis stabilized at our facility. We do market programs. We're in the community at the African American Wellness Walk.
Yeah.
We do different community festivals just to spread that awareness and provide resources to the community.
It's pretty dope.
Yeah.
I think the important piece here is that, these brothers are here to help. I think that's the important part to acknowledge. And us, particularly as Black men, we don't always do the best job of asking for help.
Yeah.
Typically, it takes some kind of crisis or some kind of breakdown. And I know you guys are doing great work on a day-to-day basis. Talk to me a little bit from both ends of the spectrum. What's some of the more fulfilling parts about the work that you do, and what's kind of some of the more challenging aspects or things that present a challenge in the work that you guys do on a day-to-day basis?
yeah, I mean, I think the fulfilling part obviously is the most obvious part is you're kind of helping a community that's in need, right? You're kind of addressing their needs and you're meeting them at a very vulnerable point in their life. Like one thing that he pointed earlier is we serve adolescents and adults, right? So there's times you're seeing kids that are 10 or 11 that want to harm themselves, essentially want to kill themselves, right? So you're given an opportunity to kind of meet them where they're at and kind of help them in that moment. But I think it's that very same thing can also be challenging in that you're kind of seeing crisis from a day-to-day basis. And so I think the hardest thing for me at times is kind of to make sure I don't become desensitized to that reality. I leave work every day humbled because I'm kind of going to work and actually seeing the realism of what life really is. We live in a world where we have social media, we have media, and it's like we see the highlights of everyone's life. And I'm essentially not seeing the highlight of everyone's life. I'm seeing the nightmare for everyone's life. So not only do I leave work fulfilled that I'm helping a population in need, I also leave it with the realization of this is kind of what the world really looks like. And not only is it on us to kind of shed that light, but it's also on us as Black men to make sure our community acknowledges that nightmare that sometimes we ignore. So,
Sure.
One of my fulfillments is just like spreading the word, just letting people know that you can get help. It's there. We're here to help you, and we want you to get back to yourself. Mental health, it starts within. A lot of people don't know what's going on in your life and how things are going. And I want to be able to bring that out in our community, let them know like, yo, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? Provide that, that ear and just be that
Right.
person for someone to talk to. Because a lot of the times in our field, people just need, to let loose,
Yep.
just to get away from the mental health part of it and the stabilization part of it. They just want to, after, taking the meds and everything, you want to just talk, have somebody to be there for you. So that's like one of my things, like being there for them and being that ear to lean on.
I definitely think that does more than what we realize sometimes. And I think even for ourselves, a lot of times when we find ourselves in a difficult situation,
Yeah.
a lot of times emotionally, we really want somebody that we can open up and talk to.
Right.
We really want somebody who we can speak to freely in a safe space, someone who is going to be, non-judgmental. And a lot of times we want somebody who's not listening to respond, but listening for the intent of being supportive. And I think that can be a difficult thing to do because everybody who's listening to you or surrounds yourself is not always the best just listener. We've got friends who want to give their advice or what they would do in our
Right. Yeah.
situation, and that's not always the reality. And I think, Surf, you hit on a pretty critical point. With things like social media, everybody has a voice. And so people are often showing you the best part of their days. And as others, we kind of find ourselves looking like, oh, I'm not living like that. There must be something wrong with me. And so that's one of the more critical things that I've even seen myself in my own mental health journey. Is like, bro, you got to kind of turn the blinders on and realize that, a lot of, and I'm on social media, but a lot of what's on there is not 100% authentic. It's what people want you to see. And even when there are celebrities, rest in peace, Twitch. He was a guy that from surface level, everybody was saying like, oh, he's happy. He was good, when that ended up not being the case. So definitely want to be sensitive to what we take in from a social media standpoint. And then also, how we're engaging with others when we're really looking for somebody to talk to. Wanted to pivot a little bit. We're talking about mental health. That's kind of something that's really becoming more of an acceptable conversation. Things are progressing day by day. I think every day we're kind of getting better in acknowledging the fact that mental health is a real thing and it's not just like you just tripping or you just don't want to do anything. But in addition to being black men, like the mental health space, there's not a lot of us. There's not a lot of us as men doing the work that we do. How'd you guys find yourself in the mental health field, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, for me, it kind of started in undergrad when I went into psych, and then I kind of went into grad school. Essentially, I really kind of just fell into it. But I've always had an opportunity. I started off doing direct practice, so I did clinical counseling, and then I've always been someone that there has to be an innate purpose for me, right? And so that's kind of what happened. I felt like I was making change in someone's life, and over time, it kind of just built up, and I eventually was like, this is what I want to do. I want to find a way to combine this, but also become a leader. Like you said, a lot of the spaces I'm in now, just being fully transparent, there isn't many of us. And so I understand that the reality is also, though, the majority of the population that we even treat now are African American. So there's an incongruence there, right? A majority of the population we treat are African American, but a majority of our prescribers are white. A majority of our the people that work in leadership positions and that put out the clinical work that we do are white, which is not saying there's anything wrong with that, but there has to be a level of diversity within those spaces to make sure that the treatment that we provide, the policies that we put out, or anything that we put out in regards to a macro level entity has a level of diversity into it. So I think that's kind of my purpose and why I got into the position I am and kind of how I fell into it. So the goal is to continue to set the standard now so that the people that come before us continue to go in these leadership positions, right? So
Say that. Pave the way. We got to have some
For
trailblazers.
sure, for sure, for sure. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest. When I first started off in the mental health field, it was a job. I needed a job. I was living in Atlanta, moved back to Columbus, and needed a job. So I had got on with the state hospital, the state mental health hospital, up the street, and it was just became rewarding. Like I was saying, like just being able, I was a tech. I was just, being that ear to the patients. I wasn't really doing anything on the medical part of it. I was just there, just making sure that they were safe, and had that ear and had that person to talk to. And, I was a pretty cool guy. So, everybody kind of gravitated towards me. And as I met more people, patients at the hospital, it was just like, you know what? I kind of like this mental health thing. And then just on the other side of it, like the chemical dependency and the drug-induced psychosis, I've dealt with family members that have been, in that situation. So it was just like me giving back. It made me feel, whole within, just, giving back to that population. So,
That's pretty
yeah.
dope. You guys are both hitting on pretty critical points. I think a big part, especially when we're talking about something like mental health that requires you to be very vulnerable, that requires you to be able to address it when you're ready, especially in African American, Black communities of color, whatever your choice of words is, you know, the way that you kind of break down some of those barriers is finding people that look like you. I think that's the biggest thing when we said it on the last episode is people bond over commonalities, where you're from, what school you went to, what your major is, sports, things like that. Like Surf and I used to play basketball together. Now we're here talking about mental health. Kay and I, we met through some behavioral health. We're in Melvin's restaurant. He comes here all the time. And so you find that commonality, you find that level of comfort in being able to divulge certain information with people that you can typically bond with. And so it is very critical that we do have individuals who look like us in these spaces. And like you said, not to say that there's anything wrong with those who do not look like us being in leadership, but we want to make sure that everybody is culturally competent. Everybody is aware of the population that they are serving, particularly if you're serving predominantly Black individuals,
Right.
or even other communities that may be LGBTQ. You want to make sure that you are knowledgeable about the communities that you're serving. And I think what you guys do is very good work. Tell me a little bit more about the day to day of what each of you guys do, because I think some of us just hear mental health and it's like, oh, you just in the room with people all day listening to them talk. I think sometimes we don't always understand like the background, and I do think we need more people that look like us that work in these spaces. So maybe this can help shed some light on that.
Right. So, my day to day is, especially I'm gonna start with the summer. Summertime is the best time in my department, because we're at the community festivals and, like for instance, one of the ones we did, the Linden Community Festival,
Oh
was
yeah,
very
Linden is
rewarding
going.
because there was a lot of people that look like us,
Yep.
and in that area, there's people dealing with, drugs and mental health and things like that. So for them to like listen to talk to each other, hear these words of encouragement and like as far as mental health from someone that looks like us, is like very, very, very rewarding for me. Then I deal with referral sources in hospitals, spread the word like, hey, come over to Sun, we can get you crisis stabilized, and yeah, that's pretty much my day in a nutshell. Just spreading awareness. I talk to individual people. We provide resources. We have other resources that may need us, and if we can't, help the patient, we'll send them off to somewhere that may be able to help. And that's why I, get myself on referral sources like you. If I have someone that may be in a situation that I can't help them with, I can pass them off to you or to someone in the community.
That's pretty dope. Yeah, I think summertime is, if you're involved in community groups, summertime is the best, especially here in Columbus. You got all the festivals.
Yeah.
You get to go kick it for free. Usually they feed you at some of these things
Yeah.
because you're a vendor or you're a sponsor, whatever it may be. So anybody working in the community, look up the Columbus
Sure.
Event calendar, sign up
Yeah.
for all those good things. London Community Festival is pretty dope. I
Yeah.
believe that's ran by the Troys. And so those are my people as
Yeah, free
well.
resources ain't nothing like it,
Ain't
man.
nothing like free.
Yeah.
Dr. Serve?
So mine's not as exciting as this guy. I'm not in the community. I'm in the hospital. For my day to day, I spend days a combination of things. So I spend time working with my therapist to train them one on one. I spend a pretty good amount of time on the floor on the units looking at things like discharges, incoming patients to kind of look at just look at their current state and how we can improve their quality of care. So I run a lot of audits, a lot of boring stuff, but really just looking at numbers to see what we can do from a macro perspective to kind of increase the level of care that we provide our patients. So I do a lot of work with a lot of administrative staff. We have a lot of meetings, typical like director stuff, but I still think I get a lot of great work in, and I have an opportunity to kind of rebuild our internship program. I'm doing a new pilot program within our hospital to kind of provide virtual services for our therapists so they can work from home, to also hopefully over time provide additional services that way. So the cool thing about my position is I'm given an opportunity to kind of redefine what our clinical program looks like. I'm also able to lead a group of people, which is something I've always wanted to do, but I'm also able to put myself in an uncomfortable position because people come to me for answers. And that's it. You might not always have the answers, but you have to be a neutral force and be willing to at least listen to their answers and help them out. And so I would say I do a multitude of things, but that's primarily the gamut of what I do. So.
But I think that's with any, organization that's really thriving, and I would say some behavioral health that's thriving, is you have to have a combination of both. You have to have people out in the community, engage in the community. If you really want to be impactful, we can get into what that looks like on a different level, or the consultation fee. You can come see me. But you have to have people on a grassroots level, especially when you're community focused. People who are out in the community, meeting people, engaging them, talking to them, really being the front lines.
Yeah.
And then you have to have people like Surf who are making sure that the support that they need, the individuals who are actually providing the service, are trained, are up to date, are doing everything from a best practice standpoint to ensure, like you said, the best continuum of care, and that we're getting the results and we're getting healthy people, or at least getting people who are making progress day by day. Because nothing, I'm sure you guys know, nothing happens overnight. So a lot of this is a big project. As we are Black men, like I said, this is kind of a newer conversation from us, being able to speak to and acknowledge mental health. What are some of the, and I don't want to keep using the word challenges, I would say, what are some of the barriers that prevent us as Black men from really getting the services that we need? Or how do we connect better to our Black brothers and also our Black sisters who may be in need of help?
I'll go first. One of the easiest ways I say it starts at the ground level is, people say this a lot, but you tell me who your friends are, I'll tell you who you are, right?
For
So
sure.
if you look at your friend group or your family members or whoever you hang around, have they created a space to where you can be vulnerable? That's where it starts. I tell people before you do anything else, there has to be a level of self-awareness. So understand who you are, where you stand in regards to your mental health and emotional state, and then you start to figure out how to address that. And so what I would say is, do you have friendships or do you have key relationships within your life that cultivates or creates a space for you to be vulnerable? Now, luckily I do. I'm sure, hopefully some of you guys do, but I have friends for 15 or 20 years that we've cried together, we broke down together, we've had very intimate conversations that has allowed us to not only be in tune with who we are, but we've been able to understand, like, do we need to go get additional help? So I would say it starts there. That's the number one challenge is within our community. And I'm talking about typical conversations where you're at with your homies at the bar, you could be out kicking it, and you take a moment to check with somebody. I'll tell you the easiest way to do this is, every person I run into, the number one question I ask them is, how are you feeling? That's the number one question I ask them. I don't say hi, I say, how are you feeling? Because what it does is it gives you the baseline for where your homie is, your family member is, or whoever they are. Ask them that simple question, how are you feeling? I've had people, I've asked them that question, they was like, I don't know, right? Because they've never been given an opportunity to be in that space to verbalize that. You create that space, allow them to kind of have a sense of awareness of what's going on. Then you start to move into, like, okay, do we need to see therapy? Do we need to go to treatment? What do we need to do to get us to a space where we can, perform at an optimal level? So.
Yeah, you pretty much touched everything on that one. Like, yeah, a lot of us Black men and just people, men in general, like, we just got to let our pride down a little bit,
For sure.
A lot of people are afraid to say, yeah, I'm dealing with something. Like Surf was saying, like, check on your people. Like, every now and then ask, like, hey, how's everything going? Because you never know. A lot of people, we cover it up. Like I was saying, mental health is
Super.
inside, and we need to let that out. So us as Black men, we definitely we got to speak up a little more and be in those safe environments so that we can talk.
Exactly. And I think that's a good point of why we're here.
Yeah.
Really to say, like, man, it's okay if you need to talk to me and really have a real talk.
Right.
We don't have to just have a surface level check-in or conversation about sports or girls or jobs. Like, hey, bro, like, I'm really here. Talk to me about what it is that you need. And I think once we start doing that more on a consistent basis, like you said, talk therapy, allowing people to have the platform or a space where they can come talk for free. I think that's really where we'll get the best results. And who are you most likely to talk to?
Right.
The people who you're around.
For sure. Yeah.
And I think that's an okay question to ask some people. I've had to have some conversations with some of my friends is to say, hey, I understand that you're having issues. Me personally, you probably need to cut off this person, this person, or maybe not cut off, but distance yourself.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because they seem to be the correlation between, you and a lot of your issues, or they really don't seem to be the most supportive person right now for what you're going through physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, on all those different levels. And so I think that is you guys both made very good points. I definitely love having the opportunity to speak with brothers that look like me on such an important topic as mental health, because I think the more awareness that we spread, the more we'll get guys that come out and say, hey, bro, I really am dealing with something, or hey, I got a cousin or an uncle or whoever it is, and continue to provide the care that's necessary that people need. Before we get too far in the episode, I think we're coming up on time, but last two things are, one is just access. So acknowledging that you're going through something or being ready and willing to talk is a journey in itself. I think sometimes where the setback comes, where you get 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, is how do I access care? Can you guys talk about what that looks like? And it can be from a big picture, or I really want to hear like from some behavioral health approaches. If I need help, how do I get help?
So you can go to our website, suncolumbus.com. We offer free telehealth assessments as well as walk-ins. You can get an assessment 24/7, anytime. We're always open. You can come in, get an assessment. And then that's the first step, figuring out what part you need, most help at and where we're going to start the journey at. And like I was saying before, if you do meet our inpatient criteria, we do have, step down. So, yeah, that's pretty much the way to get in touch with us is suncolumbus.com.
Perfect. I asked that because I get a lot of people, and I'm sure you guys do too. Hey, bro, like I need help.
Yeah.
I need to see somebody. And a lot of times, as a person who's out in the community who advocates about mental health, it's kind of like, okay, this person's finally at that moment. They're ready to get help. I need to have the answer available. I need to have resources and access, because there may not be a second opportunity to have this conversation. And I want to make sure that it is the best experience possible for somebody who's making themselves open and vulnerable, so I can get them to somebody in a position like you guys. So what's the next steps? What's next for, we can go 2 ways. We can go with yourselves individually, some behavioral health. What's next on the horizon as far as mental health and service in the community?
So next for us, this year is going to be big. So we're definitely partnering with African American Wellness Agency again. We're working with Equitas to get in the community to work with the LGBTQIA population, spread awareness in that community. And we out here, we just trying to spread the word this year, man. We doing everything that we can. We're dealing with the national social workers, trying to partner with them as well, just to spread the word as well. Since NetCare has shut down their operations, we're definitely working with the outpatient of NetCare as well. Their crisis stabilization is shut down, and then there's a new facility that's being built this year. What is it? The Ohio Mental Health, or the ADHD. I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. The Adams Board. I'm sorry. Adams Board have a new facility that they're working on. It's supposed to open up next year, so we're definitely working with them as well.
They just broke ground on that the other day.
Broke ground last week. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're definitely working with them to spread awareness and provide that in the community. So.
For sure. Surf, anything you want to add?
No, just exactly what he said. We're going to continue to grow as a hospital. We're trying to grow our clinical program. Ideally, hopefully, in an ideal world, we'll get more facilities in the future, but good to get to grow our clientele, to make sure the clientele knows that we're here to help, and that we're, granted it's a crisis stabilization hospital, our goal is to stabilize, but also to figure out what we could do to kind of move them along that continuum of care. And then from a personal perspective, just continue to be great on both, for us, just continue to set the standards, set the blueprint, so that those that come before us will kind of know, you don't have to take the route we took, but just know there's opportunity out here to be great, right? And so we appreciate you.
Yeah. One last thing, I'm sorry. We also are partnering up with the Columbus City Schools to provide resources to families, to the kids, and the adults, their parents as well. So
that's major. A lot of times these kids are dealing with things at home, and they're not necessarily bad kids.
Right. Yeah.
They just have a lot of baggage that they're bringing with them to the classroom. And so much respect, much kudos.
For sure.
Shout out again to these young gentlemen, also to Sun Behavioral Health, for not only being a partner, but also being a sponsor of our podcast. Again, go to the website,
suncolumbus.com.
If you need help, come get help. With all things being said, we appreciate you guys. And that is a wrap.
Gas, set it on fire. Remember when I crashed, when I pulled out Elijah's. Totaled the whip, thank God I'm a survivor. My baby mama with me told the cops she the driver. That's real love, fuck an Instagram thotty.